Hello everyone, this is Anton and you are on the Blackroom channel. Do you want me to show you the Tron cinema hall today? Let's go! Well friends, here it is. We have created this beauty. Let's start with the history. The first time the client contacted me was around 2016. At that time, I had just finished one of my first projects, the Village Cinema Hall. And it was to this cinema hall that the client and I went to see our work. After that, the client disappeared for about 3 years and reappeared in the fall of 2018. As it turned out, his construction was just stalled and not progressing very quickly, and they got around to the cinema hall at the very last moment. By that time, our demo hall on Pokrovka was fully operational, where we met with the client, after which we decided to start the project and begin the design. I must immediately express great respect to our team. More than 10 people worked on this hall. Both designers, engineers, production staff, and project managers. An interesting fact is that I started this project as the executive director of Acoustic Solutions, and I am finishing it as the founder of Blackroom. Be sure to watch this video until the end, because it won't be just a simple review. It will be filled with truly useful practical information. Well, let's get started. As usual, it starts with the design process. At the beginning of the design process, we always develop the concept of the visual component, that is, the design project. The client set the task as follows. I want real space. Surprise me. And we began to surprise. 2 design concepts were developed with a space theme or a fantasy theme. Now you see on your screens, you see the first and the second. One of them was themed around space. This includes various sci-fi movies like Star Trek and Star Wars. And the second concept was inspired by the futuristic film Tron Legacy. The client immediately fell in love with the second concept. He said it was truly wow, and if possible, it should be brought to life. And now you see the visualizations that we created as part of the project. This will be simply amazing and just a true spectacle, which is exactly what he wanted to achieve. I am truly grateful to the client for allowing our team to bring this idea to life, despite it being significantly more complex than the first concept. So what did we receive as the initial input data for the design? The space is very good. Ceilings are very high at 3.6 meters. The area of the space is 45.5 square meters. It wasn't of a very regular shape. Everything is a bit crooked. There's a small bay window at the back. A window, this plinth, and we started working on the development of the structure. How do we do this? Usually, first soundproofing. We even had to raise the floor here by about 12 centimeters so that the entrance steps would be organic and fit in. This is the height difference. And the height difference here with the main floor in the house is quite significant. You can see in the footage how many steps we ended up with. Another interesting point is that we even did the ventilation here completely turnkey. Our construction team took on this part of the work because the client simply ran out of reliable contractors. And he asked us to do it. And the interesting point is that the ventilation here is organized in the way we believe it should be. This should be done ideally. The air supply is organized in the podium that is right behind the chairs. At the end, we have a long grill. And in the second row, where the sofa will be placed, there are also 3 ventilation openings that will appear under the carpet when we bring the sofa here. The exhaust is located right behind me, above the screen. All the grills are painted black, and on the sides, the ceiling is organized for air conditioning with cold air intake and hot air exhaust. In my videos, I keep repeating the thesis that high quality, good ventilation is very important in a home theater. The thing is, you'll be sitting here for at least 2 hours, and you definitely need something to breathe. The more fresh air you have here, the quieter it enters. And of course, the cooling system, that is air conditioning, should also be present, making it easier and more enjoyable for you to be here. The more time you can spend here without leaving. Therefore, always ask your cinema contractor what kind of ventilation and air conditioning system will be installed. The acoustic framework of the room is based on our usual acoustic shell, made from standard plast materials. Right now on the screens, you can see the process of how the soundproofing was created. That was the moment when I personally came with supervision to check if everything was being done correctly. It was quite challenging. Here, because the ceilings are very high, we had to extend the soundproof profile, use scaffolding and various additional structures to create our classic soundproofing scheme, reliable, high quality, and well-functioning. An important aspect of the acoustic shell of this cinema hall is that we managed to break the geometry. The client was initially ready to do everything possible to achieve maximum cinema hall performance, meaning great sound and great visuals. Therefore, he supported the idea of such a design and breaking the walls from the very beginning. These main walls are slightly angled, and this part of the ceiling that overhangs is made at yet another angle. Accordingly, we have here such a curve, good geometry, and at the back of the room, we also have a kind of bay window that is acoustically treated, but it is also not parallel to the front wall. And unfortunately, we encountered quite uneven walls here. For instance, this screen wall was off by 15 centimeters to one side. We had to build up here to give the room a more geometrically symmetrical shape in the end. Now on the screen, you see a three-dimensional model of the acoustic shell of this room. And you can clearly see these breaks, these angles, and how truly complex it is in terms of geometry. Simultaneously with this stage, the ventilation was being carried out. We have air coming from those rooms to here. The supply is on the ceiling, and there's an exhaust system, and there is a very clever air supply management system, which I will talk about a bit later when we discuss the management itself. But the point is that air comes in here when it's not needed in the pool, and vice versa. So it's a universal system that works for two zones. But the most challenging part was, of course, implementing all this beauty. Honestly, for our company, this stage was a real challenge. Every element of the wall, ceiling, or the podium, this was essentially developed from scratch. That is, all our usual technologies didn't work here because the geometry is extremely complex. The aesthetics of the lighting were designed to be very complex. We had a rough idea of how we were going to do it, but we didn't even suspect how many different experiments we would have to conduct to achieve this result, which resembles the original visualization. During the development of the constructive elements of this final finish, a whole series of real models was made. Of the joints, walls, ceiling, all of these, especially the light fixtures, so that it would be both feasible and resemble the final result. Now you can see some of these models on your screens. As a result, the basis of the wall construction consists of complex frame shapes that have the necessary groove, with a certain depth which is painted with white paint. An RGB strip is glued onto it. Yes, this hall also has RGB lighting. Each of the 5 lighting groups can shine with any intensity, any color. Just look at what the RGB lighting is capable of in this hall. Nikolai, turn on the madness. And these lamps, that was really the most difficult part. It's truly manual labor. All these strips are plexiglass, which was purchased, cut into strips, and specially sanded to become matte. And using a special technology, with specific intervals and gaps, using a special spacer profile, we assembled these lamps for walls and ceilings. Moreover, the ceiling ones had to be lowered by about 20 centimeters so that the LED strip wouldn't be visible behind the diffuser, but in the end it turned out simply spectacular. All the walls and the ceiling are, of course, finished with sound transparent acoustic fabric. Well, the screen behind me is also sound transparent, and behind it, of course, there is a thick layer of good sound absorber, covered with special black fabric to ensure complete darkness behind the screen. And the screen does not have any black backing, which could negatively affect the sound. And there, of course, is something like this. A good thick layer of sound absorber, which always has a very positive effect on speech intelligibility and image clarity. On the front stage, and if the camera doesn't capture this, I'll explain it to you. The entire front wall is finished with black acoustic fabric, the ceiling is finished with black acoustic fabric, and the space at the back, in the form of a bay window, is also finished with black acoustic fabric. And only the walls and the back part, this arch here, are finished with dark gray fabric. As a result, this all provides a very cool contrast on the screen. No light is practically reflected from either the walls or the ceiling, and it doesn't spoil the contrast of our projection image. Now let's talk about the equipment. Initially, the project envisioned a 9.1.6 system here, with a Tron processor, but as we began implementing the project and started to finalize the budget for equipment and finishing in detail, and for all this beauty, we had to optimize the equipment, so in the end we have a 7.1.4 system here. Yes, it's Dolby Atmos 7.1.4, and 8 subwoofers. Thank goodness we managed to keep these wonderful 8 subwoofers, which we love to install in each of our cinemas. Now on the screens you can see where all the main equipment is located in the room, that is the subwoofers. On the screen wall there are 4 of them, below 2 15s, above 2 12s, and Convergent Audio Cinema 6.2 acoustic systems at the front. Accordingly, on the sides, we have the left and right channels, and in the center is the front. I already started talking about the equipment, but I completely forgot a very important element. It's the acoustic door. We install such doors in every project. And here, let's go, I'll show you. The acoustic door has a very interesting design. To match the style of the entire room, we came up with this kind of paneling that actually replicates one of our acoustic panels. This whole thing was cut on a CNC machine and integrated into the acoustic door. On the other side, it has a completely different finish, but you saw at the very beginning, it even says cinema there. And here you enter the hall, and in front of you, all the main control elements. Well, first of all, you can turn on the light by simply pressing a button on the HDL system's button panel or by using an iPad. And from here, you can start by turning on either the entire hall or just the lights, for example, through the RTI control system. And at the entrance, there is also a remote control for the air conditioner. Here we take the iPad, walk into the hall, turn on the system, and basically everything starts working with one button. By the way, we will talk about the control system in one of the next videos. So subscribe to the channel, don't forget, and click the bell. And we move on, so what's next? I wanted to talk about, it's probably about the acoustic system's rear and ceiling. Here we have the left surround. Right behind this panel, behind the acoustically transparent fabric, opposite it accordingly is the right one. This is the speakers, Cinema 6.1, also convergent audio. And it was also installed at the rear. An important point is that right here at the entrance we have a whole panel for controlling the lighting. Right now, you see a photo of how it looks without, accordingly, this decorative panel. It is covered by another special black panel so that nothing reflects or glares, heaven forbid. But all of this can be easily opened and serviced if necessary. Now let's move on to the rear part of the room. Right now on the screens you can see how everything is arranged here, specifically in the corner part. And behind this fabric panel are two subwoofers, a 15-inch and a 12-inch at the back. Here's the subwoofer amplifier, and over here is the rear left back surround speaker, also a Cinema 6.1 model and convergent audio. Everything is symmetrical there, surround, symmetrical. And on the ceiling, there's also a very interesting point. Because the room was reduced by 15 centimeters in length, we had to relocate the top front speakers after the construction phase so that they would fit into the new setup. These compartments began to be located right behind the acoustically transparent fabric. Initially, they ended up right at the intersection of these ceiling lights. And the fact that our ceiling is like this, uneven and already turned, had a positive effect on the orientation of the ceiling acoustic systems. We only had to adjust them in one plane, like this, so that they face the main viewing area. The image in this hall is provided by a GVC N7B projector, exactly the same as the one in our demo room. It is located in a special ventilated box, a soundproofed box. It is part of the soundproofing shell. An exhaust system is provided there. And now, as an additional step, we will still be installing glass there so that the projector is completely inaudible. That is, there will also be an air supply, a more powerful exhaust. And this will allow this hall to become very, very quiet in terms of background noise level, which will positively affect the clarity of even the quietest whisper from the screen. Before showing you where the main equipment rack is located, a few words about the chair. This is a standard Cinema Comfort chair with 2 motors. And they are upholstered with genuine Italian Alcantara. In the second row, a special sofa in the same Alcantara is already on its way here. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic crisis, we have been delayed. This execution, because the Alcantara is coming from Italy. So, where is all the main equipment located, you might ask me. We actually had to create a partition here. In this room, there was an area where we were able to symmetrically create this kind of thing and install an acoustic door here. The door is not as thick as the one at the entrance. It's called a light acoustic door. It's also heavy, but with a single contour of good thick ceiling, and therefore when it is closed, the equipment that is there and operating is completely inaudible. Let me show you. Here, we open it. The equipment immediately started making noise. The room is small, but enough to fit a rack and all the necessary electrical wiring. The panel is also located here. This is sufficient. Here is our standard rack. In principle, I think I won't show it to you in detail right now. Well, let's move on. We turn on the light and close the door. And the equipment is again not audible, so we closed it there. Here is our wonderful equipment. Then how do you control it now? Well, we have all the controls organized. Everything is as usual through the iPad. The iPad is mounted in a special charging case called launch port. Upon entering the cinema hall, it charges there via induction charging. And you take it in your hands, press one of the buttons, and the entire system turns on. Look, the button lights up while the projector is starting up, while it warms up. The processor has already turned on, the sources have been activated. Someone watched the movie, apparently today. And now we can't do anything. In short, I realize what needs to be added to the control system, to the RTI operation algorithm, so that such a situation doesn't happen again. We will exit to the Apple TV main menu just in case, every time the system is turned off. Otherwise, there might be such surprises, but that's normal, a normal process of debugging. It will continue for some time when the client uses the cinema room, and he has been using it for about 6 months, and after that, the final acceptance will take place. And then the system will be considered fully debugged and tailored for the client. And finally, a few words, of course, about the calibration of this room, as I usually do. I spent probably 4 days on calibration, first audio, then video. There are 8 subwoofers here, so there is also a mini DSP processor in the chain, which is first configured to ensure the bass is very good and even, and then the entire system is run through the DRAC system and everything is brought together. And I dedicated a separate day to calibrating the projector's video image. You might have seen this in our stories, so if you're not following our Instagram, be sure to check the links. Follow us on Instagram here. On Instagram, you'll see all the behind the scenes of creating rooms like this. In conclusion of this review, I want to say that the client was extremely satisfied with the result, especially with how pleasant it is to be here and how authentic it feels here, making it enjoyable to watch and listen to movies. It just draws you into this huge 160-inch screen. And from here, the client doesn't want to leave, actually having even bigger, far-reaching plans. In this room, he wants to set up a drum kit for his wife, so she can also engage in her hobby here, for the children. Some kind of platform or lounge area here, so they can also play and watch cartoons. There is already a PlayStation here, and I am happy and proud that our team completed this project. And it turned out so cool and truly resembles the original concept. And undoubtedly, this room has become a true highlight, if you will, a diamond and the power center of the entire house. If you want to implement such a project in your home, follow the link in the description and submit an application. Or simply message me directly on WhatsApp. I would be happy to meet you in person to discuss creating a similar home theater in your house. Friends, if you really like the Tron home theater project, give this video a thumbs up. And this was Anton with you on the Blackroom channel. Subscribe to our channel if you want to be the first to know all the truth about creating real home theaters. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.